Um, let's talk a little bit about the ARRL. I put this presentation together about a year and a half ago, and I try to keep it updated with current events, and we'll just go ahead and get right into it. I want to thank Jeff for putting this together and for flying the plane during this presentation. So go ahead and advance the slides if you would, Jeff. And again. So in 1902 is when Marconi demonstrated practical use of communications across the Atlantic via radio. And Jeff, every 5-10 seconds or so, you can just keep hitting the space bar and we'll just walk on through this. 1912, the U.S. Congress passed the Radio Act, and U.S. amateurs were restricted to bands less than 200 meters and a kilowatt of power. And 2 years after that, the ARRL was organized by Hiram Maxim by setting up relay stations to send traffic across the nation. So not long after radio began, the ARRL was around. It's organized into 15 divisions, each represented by a director and vice director who are responsible for the policy of the league. And then there's 71 sections that implement and manage ARRL programs and services across the country. There's a headquarters staff of about 85 paid employees, most of them based in Newington, Connecticut. And we've got a handful of people in Washington, D.C. and a couple of other locations. These are the divisions. For those that aren't familiar with all of the divisions of the ARRL, there are 15, each represented by a director and a vice director. We are the Rocky Mountain Division, which consists of New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and of course, Colorado. Division directors and vice directors are elected by members of the division. Everybody gets a ballot, and every member is entitled to vote. The term is for 3 years, and 1/3 of the board, that means 5 directors each year, stand for re-election. So the board kind of turns over every year. There's new blood coming in. Current division leadership consists of myself and Robert Wareham, N0ESQ. Many of you know that Robert is also a section emergency coordinator for state of Colorado. When I was section manager, he was state government liaison and also served as a public information officer. So Robert and I have known each other for a long time, and we've skulked around the halls of the Capitol working on legislation back when I was a section manager. And when I went looking for a vice director, Robert raised his hand and said he'd be happy to do that. And he's an attorney, as many of you know, and I'm happy to have him with me when I'm in the boardroom and we've got decisions to make. He can really be helpful in providing the input. The current board, 28 elections, were Central Hudson, New England, Northwestern, and Roanoke. That term started in January of 2019. So those directors were elected in 2019 for a 3-year term. Next slide. The 2019 election, with the term that started this year in 2020, was Pacific, our own Rocky Mountain, Southeastern, Southwestern, and West Gulf. And then for the election that will take place this year, with a term starting in 2021, will be Atlantic, Dakota, Delta, Midwest, and Great Lakes. The officers of the league are elected every 2 years by the board. Current officers that were elected last January: Rick Roderick, who was reelected as our president; Mike Raisback, who used to be the vice director for New England, is now our first vice president. Bob Valio from California was reelected as our second vice president. Rod Stafford, and many of you may recognize that name. He used to be the president of the league for many years and has been active in international affairs. And he's our new international affairs vice president. So he's back in the boardroom. Nice to see Rod. And Rod and I are on very friendly terms. We know each other pretty well, and nice to have him back in the room. We've got an interim chief executive officer, Barry Shelley, who was longtime CFO, and then He became a chief executive officer for a while, and then he retired. And then when the board did not re-elect our immediate past CEO, the board reached out to Barry and asked him if he would come in as interim until such time as we could get a new CEO in. So Barry's a great guy, cares very much about what goes on with the staff at headquarters, and is actually doing a great job right now with all of the efforts that are going on with respect to COVID-19 and headquarters people not being able to be in the building. And he's shepherding the league through all of these issues right now. And he's a good guy to have there. He's very experienced and knows headquarters very well. Rick Nicewander is our treasurer. Rick is a PhD accountant, contester, DXer, and is a volunteer treasurer. And it's great to have him on the board. Diane Middleton is our CFO, and Barry and Diane are the only paid officers of the corporation. Everybody else is a volunteer. QST on page 15 of every month. You can see the contact information for the officers, division directors, and key headquarters staff. So if you're ever wondering how to contact anybody at the league, just pick up your latest issue of QST. The league is also broken into 71 operational sections. Most sections coexist with the state. There are several states that have a huge population that are broken into 2 or more sections. Most sections coexist with the state. Several larger states like, California, Texas, have 2 or more sections. Somebody needs to mute.
Yep. Check your mutes and mute.
Each section is led by an elected section manager, and a section manager appoints a cabinet to assist with specific league programs and functions. And collectively, this is referred to as the field organization. Here are the sections, and we won't dwell on this. You can Google this and look at it. And obviously, our sections in our division, again, are Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. Led ably by Jack Siacha here in Colorado. Bill Mader is the section manager down in New Mexico. Mel Parks, longtime section manager. He's section manager before I was section manager out in Utah. And Rick Breininger is a relatively new section manager up in Wyoming. Section managers can be found on page 16. Again, so if you need a contact, pick up your QST. Section organization looks something like this. Section manager can appoint as many assistant section managers as he or she desires. And then the cabinet has major functions that the ARRL supports, including emergency communications, traffic, technical assistance, club assistance, public information, a relatively new section youth coordinator, and a state government liaison. One of the largest volunteer organizations in the ARRL, of course, is the ARRL organization, which is headed by Section Emergency Coordinator here in Colorado. It's Robert Wareham. And the organization is structured like this, with district emergency coordinators and emergency coordinators, all appointed positions. Other positions in the field organization include the section traffic manager. And section traffic manager looks over net managers and official relay stations. Technical coordinator has a cadre of technical specialists that can help individuals or clubs make presentations. Public information coordinator manages all the public information officers in the section.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
The slides weren't changing, but there it did. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe it's delayed a little bit. I haven't I haven't touched it on my end in about a minute.
Right now it says sections with all the yellow stuff.
Yep. That's the one I'm on.
Okay.
And then finally, the affiliated club coordinator works with all the affiliated clubs And all of these positions serve the ARRL members and the amateur radio community. That's their sole function in life. And we have division level appointments here in Rocky Mountain. Include Mike Fatchett is sits on the contest advisory committee. Dick Williams sits on the DX advisory committee. Ron Rannick sits on the electromagnetic compatibility committee. Dr. Robert Gold, RF safety advisory committee, and Ed James is assistant director. Keeps me apprised of emerging technology. At headquarters level appointments include volunteer examiners, volunteer monitors, volunteer counsels, consulting engineers, the public relations committee, and then regionally you've got the QSL bureau workers. So these are all volunteer ham radio operators affiliated with league activities that are there to do, you know, one thing only, and that's to serve the members and the amateur radio public. This is the League's mission statement: to advance the art, science, and enjoyment of amateur radio. That's pretty much it in the nutshell. Years ago, the League came up with what's called the 5 pillars of the ARRL, which are public service, advocacy, education, technology, and membership. Membership includes QST magazine, awards and contests, technical and regulatory information, equipment, insurance, and the website. Under technology, experiment, education, digital communications, the lab, advancing radio art. Education includes books, videos, and CDs, online training, recruitment, mentoring, licensing, ham radio news, and youth activities. Advocacy is things such as spectrum defense, resolution of interference, cooperation with the wireless industry, FCC rules, and our participation in the International Amateur Radio Union, to which the
The slides aren't changing again.
All right. Well,
we're still on membership.
Okay. Let's see. I don't know what else I can do. Let's see.
They're changing for me.
Yeah, I see advocacy.
Okay, that's where I am.
It's just me, I guess. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. The ARRL is the International Secretariat for the International Amateur Radio Union. And public service, emergency communications, training radio clubs, instructors, examinators, and the previously described ARRL field organization. So ARRL is the national membership organization for amateur radio operators. It's a member-driven organization. It is also a not-for-profit corporation operating under the laws of the state of Connecticut. And it is also an IRS 501c3 charity, which is operating for the public good. And it exists as these 3 entities at the same time. And there's a balance between the membership association, the quote-unquote business aspects of the amateur radio relay, the American Radio Relay League, and its activities as a 501c3 public charity. Must be kept in balance. Like any organization, it has sources of revenue, which include dues, advertising, sale of products, donations, and development. And this means reaching out to get grants and legacy funding and things of this nature. That falls under the category of development. And again, like any corporation, it has expenses, salaries, cost of production, cost of goods. It's got a building to maintain, equipment to purchase, programs that cost money to operate. It has to pay for insurance and utilities just as any business would. The League operates some of the most well-known programs in amateur radio around the world. DXCC, contests. It operates the ARRL program. It's the largest VE testing entity in the United States. It has a huge education and training aspect, and it operates the QSL Bureau and the Logbook of the World. Publications include QST, the membership journal, the brand new On the Air magazine, which is aimed at new hams and seems to be gaining a lot of favor around the country right now. The handbook and the operating manual, both of these publications are widely used not only just within the amateur radio community, but outside the amateur radio community as well. License manuals, antenna book, repeater directory, FCC rules and regs, portable operating, maps and charts and software, technical publications, and so on. One of the leading amateur radio related publishers in the world. Station W1AW is a bulletin station primarily, and also has guest operating suites. So when they allow visitation again back to W1AW, members can sit down and operate using that very famous call sign. Advocacy with the FCC is one of the largest things that the league is involved with on an ongoing basis, keeping an eye on rules and regulations and protecting our spectrum, providing technical information, and participating in international affairs. The members elect the directors and the section managers. Directors hire staff. Actually, the directors hire the CEO, and the CEO hires the rest of the staff. And between the staff and the section managers, they're responsible for implementing and operating ARRL programs on behalf of the members. So as this slide indicates, with respect to the ARRL, it all begins and ends with our members. I have been hanging around Colorado for over 20 years. I've held positions of assistant emergency coordinator, assistant section manager, and vice director over the years, as well as being involved with my local clubs. I lived down in Colorado Springs for 15 years, starting in the early 90s, and I was involved with both the Pikes Peak FM Association and the Pikes Peak Radio Amateur Association. Moved up to Denver in the early 2000s. I've been involved with HamCon Colorado since it started, and also been involved with the CCARC, both as a delegate, vice chair, and a member of the Frequency Coordinating Committee. And I still am involved with the CCARC, with HamCon, and I'm also currently the president of Rocky Mountain Ham Radio, very active club up here, based in the Denver area, but we've got members all over the state as well as out of state. I am active in HF, but I mainly like to rag chew. I occasionally participate in contests just to make sure I still know how to do it. I'm also active on VHF and UHF. I've been participating in the June VHF contest since 2009. Field Day is one of my favorite things to do. I've been participating in Field Day, including organizing Field Day for a number of years. And I still actively participate in public service events. I've been employed in the telephone and internet industry for more years than I'd like to admit, since basically the 80s. I'm currently employed by a national internet service provider. I have 2 grown daughters. I served in the United States Air Force at the tail end of the Vietnam era. I'm a private pilot, and I own a Cessna 182 aircraft that's based at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport, the airport formerly known as Jeffco. And I'm a musician. Play the drums since I was like in 4th grade. My mother said I started playing the piano when I was about 5 years old. And I've been involved with musical groups throughout my high school and college days, but I kind of had to quit that when I got serious job. But I've still got keyboards and a little recording studio here at the house that I kind of play around with. I like to throw this picture in because other than amateur radio, this is one of the coolest things that I do like to do. It's like, being a ham radio operator. It's exclusive, but there's a lot of people that do it at the same time, so it's not exclusive. But being able to leave the planet under your own steam, or at least operating a machine that leaves the planet is pretty cool, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. A lot of items that the ARRL is involved with as far as trying to make sure we're doing the best for amateur radio and for our members. The Amateur Radio Parity Act, which is currently being reviewed by the Legislative Advocacy Committee of the League, and they were in the process of working with sponsors in Congress, but that has now come to a screaming halt because Congress isn't there right now. Entry-level license, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that, trying to create privileges that incentivize folks to upgrade, to come into the hobby, and then also to upgrade. One of the things that was talked about a year ago, and I think it's kind of died down when I put it on this slide, was the FCC enforcement advisory that came out that basically said you can't use Baofeng radios. ARRL immediately said to the FCC, "Well, we're hams, you know, we could build our own radios. We understand the problem with these radios," and things have kind of gone silent on that, and I really have not heard a lot of motion going on. If anybody is running into any issues as a result of that, I'd like to hear about it so that we can keep the league's attorney that interfaces with the FCC advised on any issues that might be coming up as a result of that enforcement advisory. The ARRL volunteer monitoring program is going very well. I expect to see a report like today. I expected to see it, but it might be a day late in coming to me. But what I understand is it's up and running. They've got well over 150, I believe, volunteer monitors, most of whom were formerly involved with the predecessor program, and that program seems to be going very well. That's being managed by Riley Hollingsworth, who, as most of us know, worked at the FCC for a number of years. When he retired, he came to the ARRL board as a vice director for the Atlantic Division, and then when this program was given the green light by the FCC, he raised his hand and volunteered to run it, and stepped down as a vice director so there wouldn't be a conflict of interest. Other things that are still pending are the symbol rate petition, and then there are current threats to the 3 and 5 gigahertz that I've seen. I'm sure most of you have seen in the news, and the league has filed comments on that to try to protect our spectrum. I don't think we've got much chance of holding on to 3 gigahertz, but I think we've got a good chance of holding on to 5 gigahertz. So why join the ARRL? Well, QST magazine, for one thing, product testing, publications and training, equipment insurance. You can get assistance with interference mitigation, technical information, public relations, and advocacy with the FCC, Congress, and state. National wins include PRB1 back in 2001. We remember the days before PRB1 where local, state, county, and local authorities could just outright ban amateur radio antennas from going up in their jurisdiction. And PRB1 came out and basically said that these local jurisdictions must reasonably accommodate. Those words were sufficiently broad that most municipalities' attorneys said, well, that means that we got to talk to them and find out what they want. And I know it's made a big difference to a lot of people. We actually have a PRB1 here in Colorado as well, which means that we get a seat at the table. They can't ignore us. Access to the 60-meter band and DMR, allowing single slot TDMA, which before it came out, it wasn't permitted under Part 97. The FCC actually issued a waiver at the request of the ARRL, going to the FCC and saying you should allow this, and they agreed. So that was a huge win for us. Here in Colorado, there was a cell phone bill that made its way through the legislation a number of years ago, and we went up and testified and got a friendly amendment that basically said a holder of an amateur radio license exempts the occupant from having to pay attention to this legislation. So even though the Colorado Senate gutted the legislation, that language, if you care to go look it up, still says that the amateur radio operators are exempt from the Colorado cell phone while driving bill. As I mentioned, we do have the Colorado PRB1 where jurisdictions are basically required to accommodate amateur radio operators. And then Auxcom bill. I was also involved in the periphery of getting this passed. Robert Wareham was the driving force behind this. And what Auxcom bill did here in Colorado was it gives the same protection to volunteer amateur radio operators that is given to volunteer firefighters, for example. They're volunteers in their own jurisdictions, but when a wildfire happens and they get activated, they fall under the state tort immunity bills, which means they can't be sued for performing their duties, and they're covered by workman compensation. And now amateur radio operators who are enrolled in the Auxcom program here in Colorado get those same protections when the state EOC activates Auxcom. So it's a huge win for amateur radio operators. Last but not least, this is an editorial by Rich Moseson. He's the editorial director of CQ Magazine. He's also a member of the ARRL, but he's a frequent critic. Anybody who's read CQ knows that if he doesn't like what the league is doing, he doesn't mind saying it. And he's bashed the league any number of times and called the league to task when they do things that he doesn't think is right. In July of 2016, he read an editorial, and I'll just read this for what it's worth. An ARRL member's $49 a year in dues buys three broad things: a magazine, which most members see as their primary benefit, a professional staff in Newington to coordinate the organization's many programs and activities, and most importantly in our book, advocacy, promoting and defending the interests of amateur radio on state, federal, and international levels. Despite its flaws, no other organization in history has been able to advocate for amateur radio as effectively as the ARRL. If it were not for the league's success in advocacy over the past 102 years, there would likely be no amateur radio service, and thus no need for magazines or staff members. So after you renew your CQ subscription, try to budget another $49 for ARRL dues and help protect our hobby's future. I don't know about anybody else, but $49 is about what I'll spend for a dinner out with my significant other. Sometimes a little more than that. So, for the annual price of a dinner out, this organization and all that it does for amateur radio, it certainly isn't perfect. Kind of like a lot of large organizations that we know, they've got their flaws, but on balance, I'm a great believer in what the ARRL does, which is why I've been a volunteer for the organization for well over a couple of decades. So that's my official presentation. I'll certainly stand by for any questions or any further discussion that anybody might want to have. And thank you very much.
Okay, Jeff. Well, thanks. I don't know how we'll handle questions, but I'll just tag on to what you said there. A lot of times people will gripe about the league, but I think the league's existence or depends on ham radio's existence. So I like to see people, join up and support it. Don't always agree, but it's what we got, So how can we handle questions? Type them, I guess.
So I get I've seen a couple of things that are popping up on my screen. I guess they're going into the chat. Maybe that I can open up. I do want to say one more thing. We're supposed to have we've got scheduled, I don't want to sound negative, the Rocky Mountain Division Convention is scheduled to take place in Colorado this August 8th and 9th. It's going to take place in the Denver metropolitan area, actually at the University of Colorado, Denver South, which used to be the Wildlife Experience down there in Lone Tree area, south of town. People know where that is. That's the facility where we're planning to hold the Rocky Mountain Division Convention August 8th and 9th. We've got wonderful forums. People who have been to the Rocky Mountain Division conventions before know that the best part about those conventions are the technical presentations and the forums. We've got some great speakers that have already agreed, including Rick Roderick, ARRL president, Riley Hollingsworth, Said he'd love to come and visit Colorado again and talk to folks. And let's see who else we got here. Ed Hare, the ARRL lab manager, is on tap to attend. And we have invited Matt Deutsch, who is the chief engineer for WWV, to come down and talk to us. He said he'd give us an okay. He doesn't see any reason why not, but he hasn't fully committed, but we're hoping to have him with us as well. Now, obviously, with everything going on, we just don't know what August is going to look like. And even if the stay-at-home is listed and people are generally going back to work, we've got a situation where, you know, we're going to expect 500 people to be in close quarters with each other wandering around this building. And I don't know what that's going to look like. August is not all that far away if you think about it. So we're kind of taking it day by day. Also, a lot depends on whether or not the facility is even going to be open. It's the University of Colorado. They have already announced that all their facilities will remain closed until July 31st. So that's 2 weeks before our convention is scheduled to happen, and that's a pretty short period of time between then and now. Actually, we're expecting to hear something more from the University of Colorado sometime in May about what their plans are for August. Obviously, if the facility is closed, we're going to have to cancel the convention, and we certainly understand with what's going on. We do not want to put anybody in jeopardy or make anybody feel bad about having to come out to a facility and be in close proximity with 500 of their greatest friends, even if they are ham radio operators. So we're kind of taking it day by day. We certainly hope we'd like to have a convention. We just don't know what's going to go on. Back to Ned, Jerry.
Okay, I guess people say they can't hear me very well, so I'll scream into this thing. By the next time we do this, I'll try to have a better microphone. So I guess if you have questions for Jeff or anything, just put them in the chat. Go up to the upper right corner there if you haven't figured that out, and then it'll bring up a box, and at the bottom you can type. And let's see, Robert White said, "How can one get more involved in the ARRL?" So maybe Jeff, you can answer that while we're looking for more questions.
Sure, Robert. Depends on what it is that you'd like to do. What you'd like to do. Obviously, DRC is an ARRL affiliated club and has been for a century. So I remember handing out the century certificate at a meeting. Was that a year or 2 years ago now, Jerry? So one of the ways is you could sign up as a technical specialist. Reach out to Jack Siacha. He's our section manager, and find out what appointments that he has available as a technical coordinator. Something to do with emergency services if you're interested in the ARRL group, public information. If you've got any kind of press, news media background and you want to become a public information officer, always looking for good PIOs. Club activities, youth activities. There's any number of things that Jack has available. Jack Siacha, who's our section manager here in Colorado.
Okay. Will Perkins is asking if will the presentation be on the website, and may I use a few of the slides in my license class? Yeah, and we're seeing the top of your head there mostly, Jeff, for whatever reason.
Really? Oh, probably because I was. How's that? Any better?
Yeah. That's good. So, yeah, there you go. So can he use the slides, or is that permitted? Yes,
absolutely. Jeff has a copy of the presentation, and he is free to distribute it, or I can just send it to you, Jerry.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that taken care of. Let's see. Looking here. Blake Huber asked if the staff is being paid during the shutdown.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. There's another. We'll take exams, go online, and we covered that earlier. So
we can talk about it again. There has to be a proctor. That's the problem right now. is there has to be a proctor. And you know, there's an interesting Alaska thing that goes on where sometimes you know, you can't have somebody in the room, and they actually let somebody else proctor, like a sheriff's deputy or something like that. That may not be a licensed hand, but somebody that's there to make sure that everything's on the up and up, and that essentially that there's no cheating going on. You know, that was one of the things that you know, they used to have to go to the FCC to get licensed, and when they moved into this volunteer examiner thing, the FCC just wanted to make sure that the volunteer examiner coordinators made sure that there was no cheating going on, for want of a better way of putting that, as bluntly as it can be. So because of that, there needs to be a proctor that witnesses the test tasting, the test taking, to make sure that everything's on the up and up. That's the problem in the nutshell. You got to have a proctor. And so, you know, when everybody says, well, you know, they do remote testing in Alaska, yes, they do, but there's still a local proctor that's there in the room where the testing is taking place. So they're trying to figure out the best way to move forward. And I know that there's been discussions going on, even with the FCC, to find out, you know, what can we do? And the league is looking at ways of making this work. And I know that they're diligently working on it. I also know that they're not ready to make any announcements until they've you know, until they're ready to do something. You have to keep in mind that some of the smaller VEs can do things more quickly because they don't run it. They don't do as many tests. The ARRL, I think, is doing somewhere between 70 and 80% of the tests in the US right now. So whatever they come up with has to scale. And I don't know if they will do something that's like selective, if only certain you know, VEs are capable of doing it, then they'll like be, you know, for example, in the Denver area, if the DRC was the only one that qualified for some kind of remote testing and the other ones just had to stand down. And I'm not sure the league would do that, but, you know, for my money, that would be okay, you know, during this kind of an issue. So it's that type of thing. So it's being worked on diligently.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Jeff. I don't see any other questions. That was the last one that was typed there. Oh, wait a minute. Well, no. I didn't scroll down. Let's see here. Now, let's see. Did anyone proctor in the? Is any? It keeps moving. Is anyone considering having the proctor be in the room by technology video? So you kind of answered that, I think.
Yeah, the answer is yes. That is something that's being looked at. Yes.
Okay, and let's see. Tony says New England SciTech is doing them online with cams, I guess.
SciTech?
Yeah, SCI-tech, TECH.
Okay, I'll look into that. I'll see if I can figure out what they're doing.
And let's see, Robert White said W5YI just did a sample test. So I guess that's another one. Let's see, last one here. Tony left a online exam in New England, and he left a link here for that. So we'll see if we can capture that. And Will Perkins, the URL, I guess that's what he means, is the URL for it. So, and Jeff, you went away. You still on audio?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, there you're back. Okay. I don't see any other questions. I'll give you, everybody out there, a couple minutes. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. What happened to Howard, previous CEO?
I like Howard. Howard was not, his contract was not renewed by the board in January. I'd have to look up to see what the vote was, but it was 6-9 or something like that. There were several members of the board who felt that he wasn't the right person for the position. I personally liked Howard. I liked him a lot. He came in and started reorganizing headquarters and, for my money, holding people accountable. I expect that maybe some people didn't care for that. He had, I've been in high tech all my adult life, including in management positions, and I've had to hire and fire people, and I've had to implement new programs, including IT programs. And he understood what the league needed to do to modernize, especially from an IT standpoint. He was saying all the right things, the things that resonated with me. So that's why I liked him. I voted to retain him. Obviously, I was in the minority. His contract was not renewed. So we are in the process of going through a search, a CEO search right now. We've got an external firm that is out collecting resumes. There's been a committee appointed by the board to conduct the search, go through the resumes, start conducting interviews, and see what we can do about getting them. Now, obviously, again, with the COVID-19, our next board meeting is in July, and right now, I was just talking to President Roderick last night. We just don't know. Even if people are flying again, I could tell you personally, I don't want to get on an airplane right now. I'm in that category that I'm immunocompromised. So I don't necessarily want to be in a big crowd, and I don't want to get on an airplane right now. I travel a lot for work, and I travel a lot, for the league, and I've been on airplanes a lot, in the last couple of years. And right now, I'm glad that I'm not on an airplane. And Connecticut's a long drive, so maybe I wouldn't mind driving to a board meeting, but I'm going to spend a lot of time on the road, and I got to figure out where I'm going to sleep, and I don't like sleeping in my car. So, we're kind of up in the air right now as to whether we're going to have a board meeting, which is where we would get together and do the final interviews a couple of days before the board meeting. We'd invite the top 5, 7 candidates, whatever the decision is, and have in-person interviews. Well, if we're not going to be together, it's going to be hard to do that. So we just kind of have to take it as it comes. We have to see how things unfold. I honestly don't know, what's going to happen, but I'm, staying in touch with my fellow directors and with the officers of the league, and we're all proceeding the best way we know how.
Okay, very good. A couple more here, and then we'll wind it up, I guess. Frank says, what about mailing the test to the public library and the library monitor like remote college students?
Yeah, that's something that would work with a proctor there. But the library has to be open,
Right, yeah.
And something like that is doable. It just has to be scalable and make sure that everybody has access to a library. It has to be something that's universal. I'm not sure that the league, I don't know the answer because I'm not, there every day while all these discussions are going on. They're trying to do something that works for the largest number of VE teams that are out there. They don't want to do something that, you got to go to one place in Colorado. Everybody's got to come to Denver, or everybody's got to go, somewhere to take their test because that's the only place where whatever they work out is available. I don't, I think it's got to scale. I think it's got to be fairly universally available.
Okay, well, good. Well, Robert White said, thanks for the explanation. And let's see but anyway, thanks for the explanation. Will Perkins said, expect miracles, plan for the worst case. I guess that's what we're doing right now. Blake Huber said, Zoom's great for interviews. And okay, yeah. Jim Beals asked, there was a earlier question, if ARRL membership dues are tax deductible. Believe the membership part is without the cost of QST.
What a great question that is. I actually don't know, but I will find out, and I will send out a bulletin to the members.
All right. And I'll just, Troy, if you email me that link, I probably won't be able to capture it off of here. And that'd be great.
I tried to, but I couldn't.
You got it?
I tried to, but I couldn't.
Okay, well, we'll have him send it to me. He said he would. Okay. Well, one last for questions. I think I got them all. If I missed anybody, apologize. I don't see any more coming up here. So I'll just say, Jeff, thanks for doing this. We had, I think I saw, we got 63 now, but I think we had 74 on here at one time. So, yeah, you know, it wasn't perfect technology wise, but what the heck, you know, we give it a whirl.
We need to persevere, right? Hey, when band conditions change, we just, we hang in there. If we're
exactly
trying to get that contact, you just got to hang in there.
And Bill Worthington said growing pains, and that's
the truth.
True. Let's see what somebody else said.
This is Jeff Irvin. Can you hear me now, Jerry?
Yes.
Will said,
welcome back.
Said we had 76. Yeah, you're back, Jeff. What did the internet crash on you?
Oh, I had my system locked up, and then my headset crapped out all at the same time.
What time?
But it's good incentive to go buy a CPU with an i7 processor, so I'll be doing that soon.
Right.
Bill Rinker said thanks to everybody, to all, and Cedric said thanks for the great presentation, and Matthew said overall worked out well. Thanks for the presentation. So I think we'll stop it there. Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we'll
Jerry, I've told you this personally, and I don't mind saying it publicly. DRC is really one of the finer organizations in the state of Colorado. You folks do great things to attract and retain amateur radio operators. Your ElmerNet on the air is fantastic. Your Elmer sessions, and you did one tonight that you do at the meeting, are fantastic. I've been paying attention to DRC when I was section manager when I lived down in the Springs. DRC was well known to me, and that's when I started interacting with you personally, Jerry. Back in those days. Congratulations, to everybody in this organization. It really is one of the flagship clubs in the Rocky Mountain Division, and you guys should be very proud.
Well, we are proud. Thank you for the kind words, and we try. We've got a lot of good people, and we keep moving forward. So thank you very much to everybody. We'll end it now at about whatever time it is here, just a little bit after 8 o'clock, and I guess we'll look forward to more of these. So again, thanks, Jeff. Thanks everybody for tuning in, so to speak, and go get on 10 meters tomorrow. See what it's doing. Adios.
73 all. 73. Good night.
73. Bye-bye.